Hello, welcome to another episode of Emotion. In this particular edition, we are going to discuss about masculinity and all the societal misconception around the word masculinity. My name is Nasra Hassan and my guest will introduce himself. But if you haven't subscribed yet, kindly click the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell so that you do not miss anything each time we upload educative content. Do not go anywhere because we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back. And my guest is Dr. Agaba Denis. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Nasra. It's good to be back to Emotion.
Yeah, this is not the first time that he is with us on this platform, but maybe for the sake of people who didn't watch the previous episode, which we were with Dr. Agaba, kindly introduce yourself.
Okay. For those who haven't watched, I'd encourage that they get time to watch it because it was a very powerful discussion that we had
sure, it was
back then. But yes, my name is Denis Agaba. I am a medical doctor with a special interest in mental health.
Yeah.
So my field is psychiatry. That's what I do most of the time. So I am very excited to be back to the show.
Thank you. We are excited to have you back as well. So today we are going to talk about masculinity. In our society, masculinity is perceived as aggressiveness or power, and this affects how men act and react. So what is your take on masculinity?
Very true. When you mention people's misconceptions of the word masculinity, actually many people think that masculinity comes from the whole element of having muscles.
Muscles, power.
Someone has muscles, someone has power. But that's not necessarily the truth. The word masculinity or masculine really comes from the Latin root masculinus, which just refers to being male, being a male, and that's why the opposite of masculine is feminine, and feminine really is just being female. Okay, so it has nothing to do with muscles in and of themselves, because even women have muscles, and we've seen these
we also
very
go to the
strong,
gym
well-built ladies as well, who can also be very aggressive sometimes. But yes, so just to break down this misconception around what masculinity really is, and ultimately it's simply meant to be society's expectation, society's understanding and identification of the male gender. So what is expected from someone who is a male, whether young, as a boy, or older, as a mature man? What does society expect of you? How does society expect you to act? What are those acceptable ways in which men are expected to act or to react in given situations, in given circumstances? And that's really what forms the bulk of masculinity as a whole.
So what would you perceive as healthy and toxic masculinity?
When you use those words, it's very interesting. That's healthy versus toxic.
Toxic, so
we
want to see the difference between
when we speak of toxic masculinity is when these expectations or these ways in which men in society carry themselves, or the things that they do, if it gets to a point where it leads to harm rather than it being able to build up society. So if it has a negative influence or a negative effect on society, then it becomes toxic in its nature. Something that is toxic is something that poisons, that destroys. Okay, that's why they tell you this is a toxic substance. Means it's going to have a negative effect. It's detrimental to the growth of the whole. And so when certain characteristics of males has a negative effect on society, then that is toxic masculinity. An example that you can give, for example, that's quite common is the usual resort to aggression, to physical aggression. That is definitely very detrimental. We see this a lot in domestic violence. Husband comes home, he's annoyed for one reason or the other, and chooses to violently attack his wife or the children.
Yeah.
That's very detrimental. Okay, that's it's bringing society down rather than raising it up. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's one of the ways in which it becomes
Yeah.
toxic in that particular sense, because it's detrimental not only to the people but even to the individuals themselves. You know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if your wife is unhappy, if your wife is hurt, it's also going to affect you directly. Yeah? And so that is a very negative form of masculinity.
Yeah.
But also, even in terms of the individual themselves, one of the other negative traits of masculinity is, and we see this a lot in the healthcare space, is the expectation that men don't fall sick.
Yeah.
They can't be weak. They have
Yeah.
to be strong. Okay, and you see how all this comes up when we're younger. They'll tell boys, no, big boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Boys not supposed to cry.
Yeah.
Supposed to be a man. Toughen up. The headache, come on, you can't go to the hospital for a headache.
Yeah. Something like flu.
Flu, what do you mean? You're a man. How are
Yeah.
you letting this thing put you down?
Yeah.
And that's very wrong, because ultimately we see that the health seeking behavior of men is much poorer than that of women,
Yeah.
because of the culturalized expectations that men are not supposed to be affected by sickness or to be weak, and they
Yeah.
are meant to just be strong and productive all throughout. And so that can also be negative towards the individual themselves. So they will be suffering, and they will usually suffer in silence.
Yeah.
They won't come out to seek help,
Yeah.
or to just acknowledge that they are, dealing with one thing or the other. And by the time eventually when they come, it's very advanced. We see this a lot when it comes, for example, cancers.
Yeah.
Breast cancer is one of the most common cancers. Well, very much because women tend to come and seek care very early.
Yeah.
So we tend to diagnose it early, and many times the prognosis is good because we catch it early.
Yeah.
The men, on the other hand, for example, I'm sure you've heard a lot about prostate cancer. 80% of the time are going to catch it late,
Yeah.
because this person has been struggling and is not going to say anything about it, because how can I be seen as a man
Yeah.
telling people that I am suffering or I'm weak in one way or the other, and that is very toxic
Yeah.
in that nature. Yeah.
And now, how does healthy masculinity look like?
So yes, in direct opposite to that, healthy masculinity really is in the sense that it has a benefit to society, but also to the individual. How our societal expectations of the males enables them to make the best of themselves, but also enables them to push society forward.
Yeah.
So one example I can give in terms of healthy masculinity, for example, is in the role of the protector. As we know, the masculine masculinity now brings with it the I would like to call it maybe the responsibility,
Yeah.
or the duty to protect
Yeah.
society. And in that way, you're expressing your masculinity in a very healthy way. Our fathers, provide for the family, protect the family.
Yeah.
And yes, we can use our muscles and our energy and our strength to protect us, and that is something that is healthy,
Yeah.
a healthy manifestation of masculinity. To be able to lead very clearly and very decisively, to have the right direction. Okay,
Yeah.
and these are things that are expected of men.
Yeah.
We know that the male or the husband usually is the head of the family, so he's the one to give some form of strategic direction to the family.
Yeah.
And that, if then well expressed, is is a healthy form of masculinity.
Yeah.
Because then we have someone who can be able to protect the family, to lead and to guide. Yeah. Also, to the individual, it enables them to become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
Because as part of being male is, you're going to be a leader. You're going to have to work very hard to provide, but that also
Yeah.
helps you to grow your skills, grow your talents and your abilities, and to be able to, get up every other day and make an improvement to yourself and to society. So in that context, this masculinity, these expectations, these definitions of the male gender in society can actually be very healthy, very important, and very beneficial to the individual and society as well.
Yeah.
So that's the healthy bit of masculinity.
Yeah. Let's talk about masculinity vis-a-vis expressing or managing their anger or stress, because in most cases the common way that, okay, not like all the men, but some men feel like the way that they should manage their anger as masculine men is by tapping the walls, breaking glasses.
Okay, very true, very true. And this relates a lot into the work that I do in the mental health workspace, because we see people becoming aggressive, and usually that's a sign that, oh, this person may not be mentally healthy. So one of the things I could say about that when it comes to masculinity and why it almost always ends up in that way is, you see, if we don't express ourselves and we sort of bottle up a lot of emotion, it eventually explodes. Okay, and that's something that we now have to work very actively against, because typically what happens is and again, because we've been taught as men that, you don't keep quiet, just do your thing, don't talk about how you feel, just focus on work, get work done. So typically what happens is there's a build-up of emotion, and then once you get past the breaking point, you're not really in control. So then they become aggressive, then then it becomes too much. But usually that's because of a build-up. So if you're to deal with issues as and when they happen, if you're able to communicate how you feel and what you're struggling with, it never gets to the point where you have to resort to clenching your fists, and being able to fight it for you to arrive at a particular solution. Ultimately, if you're just able to talk about things from the beginning, it prevents you from getting to the point where you have to resort to violence. Or to being physical about something. And that's why we always encourage people to come out, speak out. You'll find typically that for the ladies on the other hand, and which is something that comes natural to them as a result of their femininity, is that they're able to express a lot of what they feel. And when they do, you talk about it, it's gone. Okay. Men are usually holding back onto it. Okay. So we always, there's a common phrase of, how women can be nagging, right? Because they keep talking about things. But that's helping them. Now, for you, on the other hand, if you're not saying anything, you're building up. Your resentment, your anger is building up. Anger is really in and of itself, it's a natural response to anything that does not please you. Okay? We all get angry. Okay? The question is, to what degree? If you deal with that which makes you angry as it comes, then you won't have to resort to physical means. But if it builds up, usually then you realize that, oh, I now need to react in a much more exaggerated way, where words are not enough, and then I resort to the violent element of things. So I think it's definitely one of the more toxic ways in which this masculinity takes root, but we have to go back to the beginning. And if we encourage men to speak out a lot more, if we break this misconception that all men should just keep quiet and not talk about what's really going on, and just talk about soccer and what's on the news, then ultimately we're just brewing a lot of aggression.
Sure. Now let's talk about self-care in a healthy masculine way, because self-care seems to be perceived, or it even sounds like a feminine thing. Because self-care, it's like a woman going to the spa, massage and stuff, manicure and pedicure, and those sounds to be feminine. So in a healthy masculine way, how does self-care looks like?
Okay, it's very interesting when you put it that way in terms of self-care. You'll notice again, because of the way society has framed it, is the men are not meant, or have not been encouraged to think about themselves, but to think about everyone else, you know, because you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about your children or your partner or your wife. I had this interesting discussion with a couple of friends of mine. Is you find that, you see, the moment he gets paid, the first thing he's going to think about is, oh, I need to send my girlfriend money.
Yeah.
Okay. Or I need to send money back home.
Yeah.
Or I'm not just providing for everyone else. Okay. So the element of self is not something that we talk about a lot. You know, I mean, it goes back to our upbringing. We're always having these high expectations on ladies in terms of how they look and how they dress.
Yeah.
But that's never something that we care about when it comes to men. For the men, we're only interested in how much they earn,
Yeah.
you know, and how hard they work, not so much how they look or how they feel. You know,
Yeah.
the typical thing is, okay, you know, the typical question they'll ask you is, how much do you earn? You
Yeah.
know, or how much are you willing to give me? So that's I think what has driven most people not to care so much about how they look or how they are, but to care about how much they are bringing in. Okay?
Yeah.
Someone once joked and said the definition of being handsome, yeah, is if you have something in your hand that you can give. Right?
Oh.
You know, you have some in your hand. If you have, then you're handsome. Right? So it's not so much about what you look like,
I get.
but you know, do you have some in your hand?
Yeah.
Which is different from, you know, beautiful, which goes far more into what you look like.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we have to be able to change. And I think for me, self-care then really is taking care of yourself as a man. Okay? It may not necessarily mean that you have to go to the spa or to have a manicure done. No, but
Yeah.
take some time to think about yourself. Think about what you would want. Think about what would be good for you. Take time to reflect on how you feel and what could be causing that. You should be able to know what makes you happy and also prioritize that as well. Not only, and I'm not saying that you should neglect your responsibility and duty to society, but you also have to take care of yourself in one way or the other. You know, I mean, if you don't love yourself, then who's going to love you?
Yeah.
You know, so I think it must begin first with you taking care of yourself, and that can then provide the route for you to take care of everyone else.
Yeah.
So my definition of self-care in a masculine way is spending some time with yourself, spending on yourself,
Yeah.
but also just getting in touch with who you are and what you like, and being able to express that.
Yeah.
Not only just to give, but also to give to yourself as well.
Yeah. This was so wonderful. This was really a wonderful discussion. And this brings us to the end of this particular edition. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as we've enjoyed making it for you. From Emotion, we can't wait to see you in the next episode. Until then, it's a wrap. Bye-bye. My name is Nasra Hassan, and stay blessed.